How are you breaking it down? What's your criteria?
All right, so this is something I've thought about for a couple weeks now. Probably the hardest thing I've ever had to do in terms of a topic for this show, just because I'm going to be honest, and as a Niners fan, and all Niners fans should take real pride in this, the Niners have about 20 top 10 players on their team. This roster is really loaded when you go down to it. So I did a lot of studying, a lot of work, and I came to my top 10. I'm really excited about it. And then basically the criteria I use is I rank the 10 best football players on the 49ers without injury. Because if we include injury, we're taking away half my list.
That's key. So say that again. Injuries are not counted in here, or our projection of someone's durability. We're not doing that.
It is just the 10 best when they play football players on the 49ers. And the way I did my list is a little different from the way normally fans rank players on their team. You know, fans usually rank the players they're attached to. They rank the players that are highlighted by the team, highlighted by the media. And they also, the other thing they do, and I feel, is that they rank players whose job I took into account what player has to do what job and what player is capable of doing what job. So if you're a player that's very good at doing a specific thing and you're always able to do that specific thing, in my eyes, you're not better than the other player who has to do 7 specific things so that you can do your one specific thing that you excel at.
Agree. So those are our criteria. Our lists are going to be entirely different. And when we give our rankings, we're going to explain what we're prioritizing. And it'll probably be a little bit different. So I'm interested to see what Vish, I have no idea what his ranking is. So what we're going to do is I told him to have a list of a couple, 1 or 2 honorary mentions before we get into our top 10. So guys who are either 11th or 12th on the list didn't quite make it in. Who is your honorary mention?
Yeah, so my honorary mention, one of them is Weston Richburg. Weston Richburg for me was right there, but I couldn't fit him in just because I felt like while an excellent run blocker, pretty good, a very good center, very smart, I felt like his pass protection wasn't elite. And I feel like the other guys on my list are pretty much very good or close to elite at every single thing they do. But I think he was a little more on the outside looking in. The guy that really missed out, and to me, he's probably a top 10 player on the 49ers. I actually made a list of 11 players. I included one tie because I could only, there was just one guy I wouldn't want to leave out, and that's Eric Armstead. To me, Eric Armstead should be on the list. There might be a little bias here from me on just a player that I liked a little better than Eric Armstead, and because we're opining, I happen to like that player and what he does a bit more than Eric Armstead, so he's not there. But I think Eric Armstead is right there, and he is definitely right near or one of the 10 best players on the Niners for sure.
Okay, my honorary mention, this may seem a little controversial because he hasn't played a lot, but when he has played, I think he's been excellent. Jeff Wilson Jr. And not just because, it's the way I look at it is people overlook him because he's a running back. You know, running backs are supposed to be a dime a dozen. You don't want to pay running backs. You can get them after the draft. That's all true. But he still does his job extremely well. And it's not like he's only a tough runner, because he's not. He's actually, I think, a better receiver than he is a runner. His receiving ability is what makes him intriguing. And the fact that he can also average 4.8 yards per carry, run as hard as any running back. I'm not saying he's as bruising as any running back in the league, but his mentality is as aggressive as any running back in the league. And he led the Niners in touchdowns this past year. I'm going to give him an honorary mention, Jeff Wilson Jr., and I think his arrow is up.
Yeah, I mean, that's one guy that I didn't actually have really in my conversation of the guys I discussed. But I like that one. I see where you're coming from. He is a very good football player.
You know, I think a lot of times you think running back's a dime a dozen. Well, there's no reason to. I'm not going to hold in this ranking. I'm not going to like prioritize certain positions over another.
Yeah,
if a guy's great at his position, then he deserves merit.
Absolutely, yeah. And I agree with that. I didn't take positional value or positional ranking into account just because for me, like if we did that, Jimmy Garoppolo has to be top 3 on this list. I just take into account what's your job, what are you asked to do, and how good are you doing it, at what level are you doing it. And I also did take into account the difficulty of what you're asked to do. And for me, that's the reason I do drop a little bit on the Niners running backs, because I feel like there's so much schemed up for them in the run game in terms of opportunity. It's all about really just reading one blocker and running really hard. So for me, that's why I was.
That is a great point. And there's this long track record of Bobby Turner and the Shanahans creating these running backs. The reason I'm giving Jeff Wilson Jr. a boost is because of his receiving ability. I
Sure.
really believe that that's his best attribute, and the
Fair
running
enough.
is secondary. So that's where I
enough.
come from here.
Fair enough.
Okay,
That's fair.